All right, man. So we got some huge news for Kamala Harris in the state of Arizona. So some absolutely massive stuff happening. So there's actually a challenge. There's what's going on is there's a lot of abortion amendments that are going on that are like direct ballot, polls basically that people can pass these laws or constitutional amendments and such that would give abortion access. So there was actually a challenge against one appearing in Arizona, but it appears that the Arizona Supreme Court has rejected this. And so it says the Arizona Supreme Court clears way for voters to decide on constitutional right to abortion. So this is going to be absolutely huge for Kamala Harris in Arizona because this is going to result in something that people can vote for, that people would be really motivated to come out to vote even outside of just voting for any candidate. And you have this very specific thing. It's also crazy because I don't know if you guys saw the video I did, but I did a video where basically it was a breakdown that showed that Kamala Harris is surging with women voters. So Kamala Harris has women just surging everywhere, surging all over the place. Crazy numbers. The gender gap is actually getting crazy. So presumably this can help really the turnout of women voters in the state of Arizona. Arizona and Georgia are kind of pretty heavy turnout states as well. And so this would be absolutely massive. And also, progressive men will obviously be turned out for this as well. Maybe black voters as well would be absolutely massive in terms of a turnout impact. That's absolutely huge that can come out. And we're going to look over at some of these numbers here because like if we take a look at these Arizona election numbers, right? Biden wins by 0.3% in the state, absolutely razor thin margin. If we go back to 2020 and look at the aggregate numbers for Biden, he's at 48.7% is his final percent you can see on election day. And what we can see is what actually ended up happening was he actually ended up getting 49.4, and so he actually ended up outperforming by 0.7 points. If he had ended up if Trump had overperformed the same amount he did, and then Biden didn't have that overperformance effect, he would have ended up actually losing because he only would have had 48.7% of the vote. So Arizona is heavily a turnout state, and so it is actually the Sun Belt is really interesting. And I should have pulled up the Georgia numbers as well. But like in the state of Georgia, what we can see is at the end he's at Biden is polling at 48.6 on the final day, and he ends up also getting something like 49.4, 49.7 or something. He overperforms his number by a full percent. Again, if Trump got his same overperformance numbers but Biden didn't overperform, he was going to lose. So there's evidence of overperformance for Democrats in these Sunbelt states where there was underperformance. In Wisconsin, there was a good amount. It was like 2 to 2.5. The other states, it was kind of minor, like half a point or 1 point in the other Rust Belt states. But there's no evidence of overperformance for Biden in 2020 in the Rust Belt. But there is evidence in the Sun Belt of overperformance in Gaza and Georgia and Arizona. I'm just combining the, acronyms, right? So this is huge. And then also, I was always kind of a little bit skeptical when it came to a state like Florida where they have it, because a lot of times the Florida ballot will be like, do you support Medicare for all? 90% yes, 10% no. Do you support raising the minimum wage? Yes, massively. And then it's like, do you support Hitler? 90% say yes. And it's like, what the fuck? What just happened? So there's no evidence of that going on in Arizona. So it's massive, and Arizona is a turnout state. So it's just super huge. In addition to this, we also have something else that's pretty massive here. So we talked also about how Cornel West did not make the ballot in the state of Michigan, which is absolutely huge. Michigan was lost by 0.23 points. Cornel West polling at about 1. If Kamala is able to get a higher than 0.2 margin, that could have flipped the 2016 election in Michigan. So you don't need to turn all of the 1%. You just need like that 0.2, 0.3 margin of that support. Wherever else it goes, it doesn't really matter. But this article says independent presidential candidate Cornel West fails to make Arizona ballot wants inquiry. So it says, independent presidential candidate Cornel West failed to qualify for Arizona's November 5 ballot and will run as a write-in candidate instead, his campaign said. The West campaign initially blamed this decision not to file on legal challenges for Democrats, but later blamed the snag on, quote, significant irregularities and asked Arizona officials to investigate the matter. I haven't seen any evidence of like the legal challenges from Democrats. But then I did a video, go check that out more in detail, about how there were electors that were responsible for actually getting Cornel West on the ballot. One of them's like, hey, my signature was forged. One of them actually backed out because they didn't support it anymore after Biden was replaced by Kamala Harris, which I think is a really great sort of sign of what to come. It says a day later, West campaign failed to produce the necessary documents and missed a Saturday deadline to file for the ballot. And so pretty much what we got here, he did not make it onto the ballot. And also, Republican lawyers have been boosting West by trying to get him on the ballot for this specific reason. And so they're going to try to go with the write-in strategy now, which is going to make it much less likely for him to get as many votes. And again, man, look at how razor thin this election was. And actually, one of the electors who backed out also in part because of how close it was. I think it was the Jerry Judy guy, or not Jerry Judy. Oh my God, no, it's a different person named Judy. That's the football player. But he's one of the electors in the state, and he was basically like, once Kamala was in, I was done. And then also talked about how close the margin was. So you can see how razor thin this is, man. 0.3 points, guys. 0.3. Insane, right? So if you could even just margin out, like 0.3 is a margin. Let's say what he gets 1%, 5% go to Stein. Let's say if she's even on the ballot. And then, you get 0.4, he gets 0.1, and then 0.1 stay home. You still win the election with that margin, right? That margin is still able to win you the election, right? So absolutely, absolutely massive. Another really cool thing, too, is Tim Walz's approval ratings in the state of Arizona are pretty massive. So this Redfield poll has Arizona plus 9% for Tim Walz, which is pretty massive. The favorables in his swing state numbers are truly insane. And then we can see that Tim Walz is also plus 9 in the focal data poll as well. So really, really massive numbers. Hopefully, he can stem out young voters in Arizona as well, because he has a lot of energy behind him with the young voters. If we do take a look, she's also surging in the DDHQ numbers. Shout out to Double D's. You guys know they're the best. Love Double D's always. But so you can see here Trump winning right into August. And then you can see there's a flop. So Kamala Harris is leading by 0.2 points in this DDHQ aggregator. She's leading in the head-to-head numbers. When you throw in RFK in this specific aggregator, she's actually doing even better. So she's winning. Sorry, these are national numbers. I don't know why they do that. You should fix that, Double D's. But she's up by 1.5 in the state, and she's been up for, I guess, quite a while. It looks like in Arizona, which is pretty interesting. So she has a higher lead when RFK is in here. When we do take a look here at the 538 numbers, she has she does have the lead here too, but by a smaller lead. So they have 0.7 here. This one might be averaged out though between 1.5, because this is 1.5, and then this is 0.2. So that's kind of like, I guess, kind of like a midpoint. So it looks to be kind of the same, but she's taking the lead in the head-to-head, and she's had the lead in the many candidate polls for a while now. So she is surging in the Arizona numbers as well. So with this Wombo combo, I feel like it's really hard for her to lose Arizona. I guess it's still possible, but man, Arizona has like a lot of, it's going to have a lot of the diversity, and then it's also going to have like the women voters. So I feel like with the Wombo combo of the abortion being on the ballot, which is going to stem women voters and progressive male voters heavily, Cornel West not being on the ballot, I don't know if Joe Stein is going to make it either. I'll keep you updated and posted on that. With all of that stuff happening, Tim Walz's massive favorable numbers, approval numbers. That's approval numbers, I guess, is the favorable numbers. With all of this stuff combined, and then Biden winning it, and then also, again, dude, this overperformance effect where it's like over by 0.7 is a lot in terms of, again, keep in mind, if Biden doesn't overperform his numbers by how much he did, he loses the election. If Trump continues his overperformance, holding that steady, he loses the election. So I think there's a lot of evidence that Arizona is a turnout state. And so all this stuff, Kamala has some crazy coconut vibes, coconut juices just flying everywhere, just going crazy, right? Truly insane. So I think she'll have like even stronger, way stronger overperformance effect, because nobody was excited to vote for Joe Biden. Nobody on the planet Earth was excited to vote for Joe Biden. They just wanted to get Trump out. Imagine if you actually gave people someone to vote for. Again, I don't know why people are excited for Kamala, but they are. That's just the reality of it. So pretty massive stuff for Arizona. This legitimately, these two things combined might have given her Arizona. It's hard to see her losing. I don't know if Stein is going to take numbers off or how it's going to go, but she's already leading the head-to-head numbers already. Also, another important thing, too, for Arizona, you don't need that big of polling errors in Arizona. He was up 2.6 and he won by 0.4, so it was only off by about like 2 points. whereas like the Rust Belt states were off by like anywhere from 5 to 7 points. So you want to get to the point where you're leading by 2 to 2.5 points to feel comfortable. You don't need to be up by like 7 or 8 like you need in the Rust Belt. And then Georgia was even better because it was 1.2 in the lead, and then he ended up winning by like 0.4. So this poll was off by a couple points, but it's much better than like the massive errors in the Rust Belt. So makes me much more excited about the Sun Belt because like, I'm kind of using Biden's 2020 numbers, poll numbers, as sort of the benchmark. And so she's much closer to those numbers in the Sun Belt than she is the Rust Belt numbers because she's only up like 2 or something in some of those states, 2 or 3, when she was up like 7 or when Biden was up like 7 or 8 basically. So yeah, pretty crazy stuff going on in Arizona. Pretty exciting numbers coming out.